Look. Fake smiles, walk miles in an obvious funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Got myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Myself a cup of coffee, sipping water when it's softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. I needed me some rainy days, so I needed me some rainy days, so for the weary, so we teary eyes realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and breathe and connect to myself and all that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress and bring me looking like what blessings drop in. And so I got myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah. Let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord. Fake smiles, walk miles in an obvious funk. Thoughts deep, boys steeped in the depths that he sunk. Big stress, depressed in the middle of fall. Sky gray, I lay in the thick of it all. I wonder, how long can a human survive just staying alive or carrying the rest of the tribe? Waiting for the day to arrive or struggling dies, and I be doing way, way more than getting by. So why? Got myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Myself a cup of coffee, sipping water when it's softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. I needed me some rainy days, so I needed me some rainy days, so for the weary, so we teary eyes realize life is so much more than just living a day. Every day I can sit and reflect and breathe and connect to myself and all that I've been given. See, giving up is not an option. So when I'm looking at gray skies, I'll be adopting a new way to deal with a test. Lord, relieve me of stress and bring me looking like what blessings drop in. And so I got myself a cup of coffee, sipping water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Water in it softly, cleansing me of stress I hold. Hey, here we go. Yeah. Let's do this. Y'all ready? 1, 2, 3. In times of test, let no harm beset me, oh my Lord, oh my Lord.
What? All right. A quick sound check. So if everybody can hear me very clearly, that would be great. Tell me. If not, I will be talking to nobody. You'll have to read my lips. Better the sound check now than later. Thank you, Anthony, if you can hear me. Check 1, 2. My levels say that it's fine. So you'll have to help me. All right, I'll take that. Thank you, Gary. Same old voice, just 2 weeks older. All right. Let me begin by saying that Dave had something to do earlier today. He will be with us, but probably in around 50 minutes. He had some type of affair to go to. I don't know much about it. He mentioned something about the chaplain who works with the Senator of the Congress. I don't know. Either that or he was talking about Charlie Chaplin. I really don't remember the entire story. But he said that he was going to race back, or he was going to send me some videos. And I got a text from him roughly 2 hours ago saying that he'd be late, but he's going to cut that short, whatever he is doing, and he's going to come on. So it'll be nice. But for the first 50 minutes or so, the show must go on, and that it will. Everybody who knows me knows that I enjoy drama and films, especially films from the 60s and 70s. Anything post Brando I really, really like. And one of my favorite films is Five Easy Pieces. Now, I'm not sure it's a favorite of many people because it is very, very depressing. And it's just not the type of film that you can enjoy if you're the type of person who likes to see a resolved outcome, so to speak. In this film, Jack Nicholson plays a drifter. And I'm not going to go through the whole plot, but he plays a drifter in life. And the drifter really just can't seem to get his life together. He does no better at the beginning of the film than he does at the end. And I've always liked this film at a certain level because there is this idea that, not everything is, peachy in America. We have this, as Dave had spoken many times about, is this idea that American exceptionalism, life is fantastic, blah, 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 something out of the 50s. I don't have to go much further than that with you because you all understand that. But this film goes in a different direction. Things that can happen in this country. And I don't know my fascination with it because I'm technically not a drifter, but for some reason, I always felt very close to this film. There's just something about Five Easy Pieces, whether it's on a personal level or on a level that I think I'm associating with tonight. It has a lot of meaning to me about this country. And we've been talking the last year or so about the divide, and hence the namesake of our group called Divided We Stand. And this film I'm looking at now through a different perspective. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen the film, again, I'm not going to go through the plot. You can look it up on Wikipedia. or just watch the film yourself, or if you haven't watched it for a while. But if you look at Nicholson's character and you look at the title, Five Easy Pieces, now it could be alluding to easy musical pieces, playing them. You automatically think about maybe a 5-piece puzzle. But the way I look at it, my state of tune, no pun intended, is that the whole film is like a puzzle, because it fools you in the beginning. And I'll get around to the point I'm trying to make about what's going on, this division in America. So just, stay with me. We'll get to the finish line. But as the movie starts out, he's working at an oil rig, somewhere in Oklahoma or whatever it was. I haven't seen it recently, but I do remember that scene. It starts off on an oil rig. And he has a friend whom he is very, very close with, at least seemingly. And he hangs around with, I guess, for want of better words, white trash. In fact, I think he even mentions it, trailer trash or something like that in the film. I'll have to look at it again. I've seen it several times. I have it. I just haven't watched it for one. And then when you're watching this, you get this feeling this guy is, trailer trash. But you start getting this hint a little bit later when he gets in a traffic jam and he can't take it. And there's a standstill on the highway, and he jumps on this truck ahead of him. It has a piano, and he starts playing this classical piece. So then there's something more to this guy than just being white trailer trash. He's got something from his past. And throughout the beginning of the movie, he has this relationship with the trailer trash. He cheats on his wife. He can't get close to anybody. And then later in the movie, the plot thickens, and another piece of the puzzle comes in there, and you see that he came from a well-to-do, very musical, academic family. And he eventually goes back to visit his dying father, and then you see that there's this kind of not so easy piece to this guy. He's very, very complex in a certain sense. No matter where he goes, he finds that people are a problem for him. And I think we all kind of know those type of people. Even with ourselves, there are times when we say, Joni Mitchell used to say love is a repetitious danger, but we could say that people sometimes can be a repetitious danger. Okay? So, throughout this movie, there's this theme with him. We're just talking about this character. And again, I'll relate this to what's going on today. We have this person who is basically a person who's been in two worlds. A world of, the simple folk, and the other world where he's with the academia. And he can't get along with any of them. He just can't. He really made the attempt. Okay, I do have some. Let me see if I can show you some pictures from this scene. So, for example, I mentioned the oil rig. Okay, so when the film starts, you see, a scene like this. Okay, and again, if you hadn't seen the film before, you would assume that Jack Nicholson's going to portray some lower class guy who his whole job is just digging up oil. You know what I mean? And then he's hanging out with Sally Struthers and some other woman in the bowling alley. He later has sex with her. It's not his girlfriend, not his wife. And there we see his wife. And in the movie, she sings beautifully. And you hear this famous song, Stand By Your Man, which kind of is interesting because she stands by him throughout the film. At least, throughout the film, she stands by him. And you get this picture, this division, this dividedness. And when you get to the end of the movie, you see Nicholson playing Robert Dupee, Let me see if I can get the scene. Yeah, he's staring into the mirror, and for whatever he's thinking, he realizes that things aren't just working out. And then there's this very, very interesting ending of the film, which I'm going to show to you because I think it's important for when I do want to make my point about what's this political dilemma, this dilemma of division in America, which I believe and really kind of relates to, this film at a different level, at least the level that I look at it. And I just want to share this with you. Okay, so let me see if I can get that last scene. And here we go. We'll see how this works, because it is an interesting scene. Karen Black, thank you, Gary. She did a wonderful job in this picture. I think she won something for. She won an Academy Award. I don't know, for supporting actress. If she didn't, she was nominated. Okay, let's check it out.
I'm going to that cafe for some coffee. You want anything? No. Got any change? You don't have any change? Sure you don't have anything?
You got a jacket or anything with you?
Oh, no, Jesus, got burned up. Everything in the car got the shit burned out of it. Everything. All I got is what I got on.
I got one behind the seat. If you want it, why put it on?
No, it's okay.
Suit yourself. I'll tell you one thing. Where we're going is going to get cold in hell.
No, it's okay. I'm fine. Fine.
All right, so let me take this off of here. So I had a chance to look at that scene. I think that was an important scene. Again, I will relate this in a few minutes to the point I'm trying to make. I believe in the original script of the film, the car was supposed to actually have blown up, which is kind of ironic because I think that Nicholson used that in the movie itself. He said something like the car was burned to shit. And then this was a much, much better ending than just going off a cliff and exploding. This was a perfect ending for what the point they're trying to make about a drifter. Okay, because, nothing can save this guy. Religion can, love can. I mean, he had a woman who loved him, was, right by him all the way through. He had, family. It couldn't save him. And you wonder why he didn't take the jacket, because he wanted to give up, at least in my opinion. Again, this is all my perspective. He's trying to give up on his past and get rid of it. He just wants nothing from the past. In fact, he gave his wallet to Rayette, Karen Black. And then he takes off to Alaska. And you don't know whether, things are going to turn out well for him or not. That doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. But I was revisiting this movie in my mind this week for some reason. It's just where my brain takes me. And I was watching an interview with Masha Gessen and David Jolly earlier this week. And I'll show that to you also, but I first want to discuss it for a second. In this interview, Jolly and Gessen are basically saying that, it's over for us. Gessen talks about totalitarianism, and she, of course, she's brilliant, and if anybody could talk about totalitarianism, it would be Masha Gessen, someone who speaks eloquently in both Russian and English. She understands politics so well, international politics and American politics. And David and I have discussed this division in America, and most of you would generally agree that there's no way back in this thing. And I think what really got me with that movie is that ending scene, because he's sitting in that car. If you remember, he's at the Gulf station, and he's just has that blank stare, and Karen Black, Rayette, is trying to ask him a few things. Do you have any change? Blah, blah, blah. His mind is a million miles away. And it's almost this feeling as though Robert, and don't forget, they call him Robert when he's with the higher class people. And when he worked with his oil rig buddies and whatnot, it was Bobby. So he's been in he's played the role of the upper class and the lower class. He's seen everything. Again, he's seen the religion, the love, the family. He has seen it all, and he can't take it. It's all a danger to him. And again, this is where I started making that connection from that final scene, because I feel like America, the United States, I should say, is at that crossroads where, for want of a better metaphor, it's when a person is dying and they realize those last few days that there's no way back. A person who gets the bad diagnosis, told you may have a year or so or something like that. You're hoping that maybe something will happen. That the pill will come in time. You'll get the magic pill to make you young again, and at some point you go through that, I guess you call that Kubler-Ross routine, and then you realize it's it. And in that way, Robert Dupuy, he realizes, for whatever reason, he cannot deal with people, that he's got to go to another universe, start anew. Not that he's optimistic, he's completely pessimistic. But here's a woman who was behind him, even with his cheating. She stayed with him. You know, she was very sincere. She even had talent. I mean, if you listen to her sing in the film, I don't know where it was. I mean, it was beautiful. And he doesn't have the sensitivity. Even when he plays, he even says, I put nothing into this. And he's almost insulted when somebody compliments him. He said something to the effect, I played it better when I was 8 years of age. I put nothing into it. So he couldn't even accept the compliment. But again, let's go back to the important point, and that is, I personally feel, I don't know about you, but this really represents what's happening here. There's going to be a point, just like climate change. Bill Maher mentioned last night, like we're all holding hands going off the cliff. We all know that climate change is real, maybe for the exception of the Republicans. They want to deny it. But we almost feel like there's nothing that we can do right now. Which is interesting because the one guy who said that was it, Guy McPherson, a friend of mine, the last few days he's been posting something about these mirrors that may be able to save us. Just reflect it. We've all thought about it, I'm sure. You need a lot of them. Maybe there is something that can save us, but things look absolutely horrible on so many different levels. And you can't think your way out. It's like trying to think your way out of death or aging. You can keep thinking, okay, hold it. Maybe, or maybe when I die, I'll cross over to this or that. You keep inventing these things in your head to try to combat it. Maybe it's a protection mechanism we have against losing our consciousness or something like that. That's a whole nother story. But I think at some point there is this realization that everybody gets. It's, when there is no hope left. And what I'm saying is, you look at where this thing is going with the Republicans, with the fact that they're just basically, they know they can't win a fair election, so they're going to steal the votes and try to frustrate people, take votes away from minorities, gerrymander. We all know that. And that's the way they're going to play it, and that's the way they are playing it. And as Dave says, they're not good at doing anything aside from obstructing. And our country, there's just dust balls ahead of us. And it's very difficult to report to you. It's like saying, we've got 82 hurricanes in front of us, and I have no good news for you. And nobody likes hearing it. I mean, if I had depression, I wouldn't want to hold a gun watching 5 Easy Pieces. Would you? Some people don't like those type of movies just because it's depressing. Some people need to, to have that happy ending because they can't take the fact that it didn't resolve in the way that they wanted to. But it doesn't. The sad thing is there is the cliff, and that movie on a personal level, and on a level dealing with what's happening in politics today, I think for most of you who are watching, or within reason around my generation, you're within 20 years or so of mine. So you're lost too if you're 20 years younger than I am. You're dealing with it. If you're 20 years older than I am. We're all kind of in the same ship here. Okay, so again, that movie always kind of rings. There's a certain truth to it that rings in my head when I watch that. There's something that I can't even explain it, but after I watch it, I have this feeling that there's a certain honesty in that movie. I mean, I like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest better as watching the film. There are other movies that are exhilarating, like Breaking Away when the kids win the bicycle race. But it's the honesty of 5 Easy Pieces. And it will never, in my opinion, never be a really popular film. And that's because it is honest. It's an extremely honest film. And on so many levels, people don't like that. So let me take you to this interview with Masha Guess and David Jolly. There are a few pieces I'd like for you to talk about, or we'll discuss this later if you'd like. I know Dave will be coming on in about 15, 20 minutes. At least that's what he says. We'll do our best. He will text me. But I do want to show you some scenes, and we can look at it, and I think you get a feel for what I'm talking about. And again, this is just my perspective. It's, I see Ivy 5 Easy Pieces, ringing bells in my head at a personal level, and then at that political level, they start connecting. Okay, so let's check it out. All right. Test. All right, let's go to, I believe I have metered this up to 110. Let's do this. We're going to see Masha Gessen. Again, for those of you who aren't familiar with her, she was a journalist in Russia. She wrote for a magazine in Russia. Putin put a lot of pressure on her. She had to get the hell out. And she came here. And she has great worries about our country. So let's check it out.
We're about 7 months too late to this particular conversation. We actually saw exactly how it works on January 6th. We saw a bunch of people who nobody took seriously, who went to the Capitol in the utter conviction, right, that they were taking back the election, taking back legitimate power, and that they were going to be able to succeed somehow, right? They had, they had a script that they thought they were following. The script can change one after another, right? There's nothing consistent in a totalitarian movement, and this is, make no mistake, that's what Trump has been building. It's a totalitarian type movement. There's nothing consistent in its rhetoric except for the basic premise, and the basic premise is that they are the only legitimate representatives of the American people.
So, David, what does happen then? Because at some point there must be some people, Republican members of Congress or aspiring Republican members of Congress, who would like to run because they'd like to formulate government policy.
Okay, I'm going to stop that for a second here and go back to the original scene. So there again, you're seeing Masha Gessen, somebody who understands totalitarianism. She saw it with the Soviet Union and Russia, and then she sees it here. So she has stock build up, more than we do in a certain sense. We've been looking at the Republican Party for the last 5 or 6 years, or actually I've been looking at since '93 with the contract with America, and we're starting to smell this come up, and it's just happening slowly. And then you say, well, I can't believe this is going to happen. I can't believe Trump's going to beat Hillary and all that kind of thing. She's been there. And every Russian friend that I know always tell me, and they're not trying to be mean to me, but they say, you don't know what this is like, what you're angry about, what upsets you so much, we've had for the last 80 years. This is normal for us. You at least have a chance. We have no chance. Okay? And then we go to David Jolly. I'm going to move ahead, go back. I have it metered out. Go to 302. Right around there. Okay, this is David Jolly. He's a political analyst. And we're going to talk about the future here.
Now about Joe Biden that they tried against Barack Obama. But Ali, I worry, I truly worry tonight to the previous comment that we're going to see further violence as a result of the conspiracy theories that Republicans support and their failure to condone these conspiracy theories. And even, we saw January 6th, but look what's happening at school board meetings in Tennessee, for instance, where parents, under this veil of defending their own freedom that Republicans continue to put out there in the mainstream, that somehow it is okay for them to assault nurses and doctors in this process. The further these conspiracies get out of control and the inability of Republicans to stop them, or even worse, their ability to foster these conspiracies, I fear there's more violence coming. And the greater fear then is, are we truly broken? Are we truly now a nation that has been broken along political lines as a result of January 6th and the pandemic? This is a sucker punch to to us nationally, to our culture. And we haven't demonstrated in the last year the ability to mend our wounds and to heal our wounds and to come together. I don't know what will bring us together because the level of distrust now is so deep in the body politic in the United States.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Gary. I'm going to get back to climate change here, because it does relate to what David Jolly is talking about. He's talking about the violence. Now, yes, there's no doubt about it that we could be headed for some more violence. But I look at what's been going on. Do I have the audio now? I hope I do. Are we okay? My levels say that it's on. Yes? No? Testing. I see sound here for some reason. I don't know. Good. All right. Thanks, Trev. Thank you, Rudel. Okay, so back to my original point. So David Jolly's saying, he sees that there's going to be problems with violence. I think we all kind of agree that that certainly is a possibility. But as I was saying, I've kind of avoided talking about climate change for the last 2 years because I've always felt that the political situation has to be resolved first, and it still does. But we see, for example, July, hottest month ever, and we know these records are going to keep getting bypassed, every month. And the hurricanes will be either more destructive or there won't be as many, and then the oceans just get even hotter. Whatever it is, it's going to get bad. But if the Republicans can't even allow, mask mandates in schools, why would they do anything to, try to alleviate climate change, global warming? They're not going to do anything. And we know how important it is. I'm almost at the point now where I say, you know what? If hurricanes start slamming into Florida, the hell with DeSantis. Let them pay. But you don't want the people to have to pay, especially those who... There are millions and upon millions of people in Florida who don't like DeSantis. Now, Trump would be the kind of person that would do something like that. He has shown that he would hurt the Democratic states. But let's go back to the movie again with that final scene, with Robert Tapia, where he just sees that there's no way out. And now you're seeing this with your better political journalists, analysts, David Jolly, Masha Gessen, and they're saying there isn't a way out. And I don't know where to go with this thing, because there really, really isn't, in my opinion. We are at that point where you say the diagnosis is here, and that's going to be it. Let's take one last look at, I believe at 4:15 here. I'll be right with you, and hopefully I'll get the audio correct when I come back. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to go there. I know, Masha, I think you believe we've passed the point, and that, David, you think we might be broken. I'm still going to hold out hope that somehow, some way, will prevail as a pluralistic society in which we don't all have to be the same and we don't all have to agree, and we can really have amazing debates about things, but we can do it within the constructs of our political system and our nation.
I guess that wasn't exactly what I wanted, but good enough. All right, so you saw that. Is the audio okay? I'm leaving it on a different setting, but if you can hear me, just say okay or something like that, because audio is number one. And if you can hear me, I'm going to continue, just assuming that the audio is working. Again, going back to that movie. In fact, I made a comment about climate change on one of my other channels at least 10 years ago on YouTube. I had been doing some reports about the cryosphere. Because remember, I was doing all this kind of crap 10, 11, 12, back in 2007. Thank you, Trev. And by the way, that's what Guy McPherson keeps talking about. He's been putting out videos recently about how he's the one that, he went off grid and all of that. And, people are saying, well, what are you going to do as, climate change scientist? What are you going to do? Well, he's been doing it. But I did that. And one of the scenes that I showed, I'm not going to dig it up from one of my other channels. In fact, I don't even know if I could find it. But I took a scene from 5 Easy Pieces. This is maybe 10, 15 years ago. And he's in a car. You may remember it. He picks up, I forget her name, was like Palm Apodaca or something like that. Some kind of strange name. And this woman talks about consumerism, how, America's just turned into consumerism. It's kind of actually makes sense. She talks about everything being crap, trying to sell crap. So she wants to go to Alaska. And she's trying to hitch rides to go to Alaska because she says it's clean up there. Right? So in that scene, Bobby DePia says, why Alaska? She's because it's clean. He says, cleaner than what? So he kind of gets it. Like all of a sudden, just assume it's he knows it. It's just not the way the life works. He knows that Alaska is not necessarily cleaner than New Jersey. I'm sure there are desolate areas that are still untouched, but it won't take long for us to screw it up. So she said everything's white there. She's talking about the snow and ice, of course. And he, in the end of the scene in the car, he says, yeah, it was nice until the big thaw. And she just freezes. And that's how the scene kind of ended. And it's kind of interesting how it's turned out. They wouldn't have known that in 1970, at least not the writer of the script, is that there is this big thaw, and that is what's happening. She thought she could escape it. And so Bobby kind of figured it out long ago, what was going to happen. You were going to have this big thaw. And everything you thought was going to be nice and clean and white it's not. You can't run away from it. And by the way, that is where you kind of think Bobby's going to go to at the end from that final scene, because the guy says it's going to be colder than hell. And that I think that scene was from British Columbia, so he's obviously going north. And if you keep going north, you're either going to hit the Yukon, or you're going to pass through the Yukon, or you're going to hit Alaska. And, maybe he ended up in Barrow or something like that. But there's no way to get around this right now, and that is that we have an obstructionist party here. And it's not just the obstruction of voting, but it's just an existential thing. They're taking away our lives because they do not care about climate change. No matter how hot it gets, they'll have something they're going to say. Some conspiracy thing. You know it. And I know it. And that's part of the problem. It's a problem because it's when you know you're right, and then the other person just has that wall. He or she just talks shit, and it frustrates you. Everything they do frustrates you because you know they're wrong. And this is why perhaps I like that movie, because you become so alienated, because people are a repetitious danger. Now, not you. I hope not me. Not I. But they're the problem. And that's that ignorance. It's that stupidity. All wrapped around that idea of family. The family of people in the NRA. We're a group of religious nuts. And their so-called love for America, draping the flag over themselves as somehow they own patriotism. Like some Republican congressman or senator who never had their son fight in Vietnam. They just talk the game. They don't actually fight the war. They're not the ones who were, getting out on the beaches of Normandy. No, they'll like tell some French person, we saved your ass. You didn't save anybody because you weren't on the beaches. The bullets were not whizzing by your ears. You weren't doing anything. But they'll say it anyway. And that, again, is what's so frustrating. And I don't know that we have any place to go. Maybe that's why some people take, drugs like LSD and heroin, just because they can't even get to Alaska. So they turn it inside themselves to a place that can just shut it down. A shot of oxycodone or whatever. Just cut the pain. And there's so many different types of pain, They just, those 4 years of Trump were just too much for the individual to have to deal with. And now, the January 6th thing, and they're getting away with it. So that's what I wanted to say. Now, I'm going to go through the comments here if you have anything you want to say. I do actually want to get into climate change a little bit. I know Dave's supposed to be popping in. I'm going to keep an eye on the text. And if he doesn't show up, he doesn't show up. Okay? Because the show must go on. All right. Okay, let's go through some commentary. By the way, thank you, Anthony. Again, it's always greatly appreciated if you like, share, and subscribe. Okay. We'd like to build up the channel, but only with the idea that we are all like-minded. Okay. So, all right. So, Anthony, thank you. Gary's here today. Joey's here. Good to see you. Veg from Canada. Great to see you, Veg. I hope you're doing well. Trev, always good to see you. Haven't seen you for a couple weeks. Yeah, my Gramps worked at a Gulf sour gas plant. There were a lot of jobs in oil back in the 60s, Guess they still are. Yeah, he did leave the car to her, and I'm glad he gave the wallet to her, because she wasn't his problem. Ariette was not his problem. She did everything for him. She played the game right. So it was the least he could have done is left the car to her and whatever money he had. And it was probably him, and realizing it's probably best for her that he leave, because, you know, he just could not be trusted. And when you can't trust somebody, forget it. Mandy's here. Hello again. I'm gonna stick her with the bill. No, I don't think he did. Okay. Evil Yoda. Sorry about 2 weeks ago. I think you did, or a week ago, you did mention that you didn't get a notification. I don't know what happened there, but sorry about that. Okay. Now let's see if we can get... Okay, so Rudel, we haven't seen you in a few weeks. Good to see you again. You're from overseas. Techno fixes don't work. The best CO2 remover are trees and seaweed, yet we destroy them like they're useless. Yeah, I would second that. I don't know that there aren't technologies out there that may be able to help, but I would agree with you. You can't get rid of the trees. You know, you can't get rid of Siberia and the Amazon without disaster happening. And yeah, just plant the trees. They're like little air conditioners. But I mean, I remember when I was doing the reality report, we had, I don't know, the guy that was real right winger, but he kept trying to sell the pitch about I don't know, some kind of pumps in the ocean, thermal conversion, where you're trying to pull up the colder waters in the oceans and, you know, bring up higher to, you know, to sea level, and maybe that will cool the planet down. I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that at all. Still don't. So I don't know. I mean, I like the idea of the mirrors. I think that kind of seems simple and helpful, but I think you're right. I think we're getting rid of what we really need, and that just trees all everywhere. You know. This is why I don't own a gun. True, most people rather live in an illusion than face reality. Oh, our boy is here. We can still get to the commentary. He says, where the F is the link. And I finally get his message here. All right. Quit playing with yourselves and send me the link. Yeah, this guy he's something, isn't he? I was so relaxed until he came. All right, let's get the baby his bottle. Here we go. And Dave, I'm going to send it through. All right. So let's get him on here. Let me tell him to check Messenger before he has a heart attack. Don't be a baby. All right. Our guest will arrive soon. Maybe you can tell us where he was. So many comments here. We got a lot to talk about. Haiti with another earthquake. And the president was assassinated. Yes, Trev, that is very interesting. But no tidal wave. That was good. At least not yet. Let's hope not. Japan had to evacuate too. Yeah, I mean, the evidence is just so obvious. You know, whether it's COVID or this. For the notion that he could become the great leader. Yeah, he certainly has. Brian Stelter mentioned that he thought that, you know, Fox let this get out of control. That now Fox I've said, is afraid of, you know, their viewers now. You know, it got way out of control. All right, I think he's here. Let's find out.
So my first question is, how badly have you ruined the show? I heard
we were talking about
viewership has plunged to 4 people.
As soon as you jumped on, we lost 8 viewers. Okay, how do you like that?
Well, they were the 8 that are your fan club. That's it.
Okay,
The
well,
other
listen.
10
I just want to build you up to speed. Then we're going to ask you where you were and all that.
Oh
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
all that. Go.
Okay, real quick. I'll do 1 minute. I was making comparison between 5 Easy Pieces and the character Robert DePere that Nicholson played. From that perspective of a drifter who has given up hope because nothing's worked for him.
Right.
Into the realization, in terms of our perspective on Divided We Stand, that the country's kind of at a turning point now when we realize that there is no way back on this thing. That you and I have talked about this.
Right.
That the division's so great, and we're kind of like him. Family didn't save him, love didn't save him, religion certainly didn't save him. But now I think we're almost at the point now where we're saying there's really not much that can save us. Now that's the short of it. Okay. So that could take, and we've had some commentary left and right.
Good.
I showed some scenes, and I put on a political scene with David Jolly and Masha Gessen saying they thought we're past the point, and that's generally what we were talking about. Okay, so where have you been? Tell us about your day.
Again, not that anybody's interested, but I am. In the pandemic, we did nothing, right? I mean, all of us. And now it's opened up a little bit. We're back, shifting it back. But today was kind of a crazy day. Let's see. I did 2 tours in D.C.
Okay.
There's friends of mine have this group, Black on White, and they invite annually 200 black friends from around the country, and a number of them will come to D.C. So I did a couple of tours for them today. Rushed home, had 2 pieces of pizza, turned around and rushed to see Ann Wilson at the Birchmere.
Wow,
Nice.
Ann Wilson
From Hart.
She was one of my faves.
Yeah, it was a good show. I love our family so much that I left early, but she did all the songs that I wanted to hear. I like covers tonight. I mean, I like covers every night. I should say. And I thought they were interesting covers. She did "Isolation" by John Lennon. She did "Won't Get Fooled Again" by The Who. She did "Dream On" by Aerosmith. And
Was she playing this solo, or was she with the band?
She's with the band now. She has her own band. She and her sister are still kind of feuding. They don't know if part will ever get back together. And for anybody who lives in the D.C. area, who watches or visits there, the Birchmere, not because I can actually make it. I made it tonight in 10 minutes home because it's not literally down the street, but it's not that far. And it's a great place to see. It's set up like a casino, with the long tables. And I have, when you go there, I have my reserve spot right next to the sound man. The sound booth is in the back, but it's a not a huge building, but it was nice. So I'm a little discombobulated here. So if I seem a little goofy, I went. It's like going from 0 to 100, right? Yes.
A lot of comments, Dave. So you'll
good.
see.
I mean, I saw about Haiti. I'll jump
Hasn't
in.
that country had enough, Dave?
No. Well, unfortunately, I guess. Well, not I guess. If you're in an island where hurricanes hit and a fault line, this is what's happening now. We can look at some of this, and is it climate change? Well, let's put it like this: if it isn't, what is it then? Now some of those. I mean,
it wouldn't matter. As I said before you came, that the Republicans, just like with COVID, they don't accept climate change. No matter what, they will just deny
it. No, it doesn't matter. No, you're right. And I think that's now like the question that I have, and we jump right in. Yes, they're planning one. Also, if anyone is coming to D.C., there is a huge rally planned on August the 28th, which is to anti-GOP, anti-Trump, but basically about the idea of the vote, the importance of the vote, and urging, Congress, which of course the people you're trying to urge aren't going to move. That's the Republicans. But the idea of it now, it was interesting today. As I said, I was there last night at this soiree. I'm kind of I don't know how to describe it. Part greeter, part tour guide, part audiovisual guy. So I got a chance to talk to prominent Black Americans from all over, all over the country. And it's nice to be in a group where you feel comfortable, and they are, of course. And, we talked a lot about Trump and where it's going to go and what it's going to do, and they're as frustrated as we are. Okay, these are very bright men and women who really don't have any answers. Now, my question becomes: I don't see any way for reconciliation. I don't. Brian, my position all along is America's never really been united. We've just been able to compromise enough to get through. Now there's not any compromise. And I don't want to hear about the bipartisan bill. That's still okay. That's everybody needs bridges. We don't argue over bridges. And the Republicans tried every way they could to torpedo that, and it's still not through. Okay, and it's still not the bill that it should be. So what's next? That's my question. I don't see us getting back together. Okay, so what's next? Well, I also don't see us going to a civil war. So basically, it becomes every vote in every city. Sometimes we'll win, sometimes they'll win. And the problem is, if they win too much, and that could just be one presidential election away, democracy is, we know it is going to sail off into the night, and we're not going to have it. We're not.
All right, I think, as I said, I think there's so many things stacked against us. And like I told you, my friends from Russia used to say, like, you don't understand. What you think is bad, we've had dealt with for 80 years. And right. I'm afraid that we're going to run to that 80. I mean, we're not going to live. If it goes that way, and it certainly can, and it probably will.
Well, I'll go with it certainly can at any point. Probably will. I'm not going to take sides on at this point because I don't know. And the fact, okay, let's look at some of the things that have happened. I see there's a lot of international stuff, which is actually good. I mean, in a way. First of all, we are one world. In the sense that let's look at the virus. Okay, let's look at the virus. We have a hell of a lot of just, I don't know what they are. If you don't get a vaccine, I don't know what you are. I mean, I really don't. I don't really care what happens to you. I don't really care, but I do know this, that you're willing to risk your life over something stupid. And I was followed up, and I want to talk a little bit before the show ends, on the crazy theories that are circulating about that vaccine. But there's crazy theories about everything. But here is, Brian, I don't know if you've been following it, and I don't follow it regularly, but I've been looking at it. The shocking numbers in the Middle East, India, Africa, South America, of non-vaccinated people.
It's okay.
You see that?
You got it? I didn't have. I had a different setting because I was showing some videos. And
okay, if you got it set up, good.
Good.
I mean, it sounds good on my end, but I can't tell.
Right.
So we have a dual problem, Brian. We have to get our country under control, but then we have to figure out some way, in terms just of the COVID, get our country, get the COVID under control. But there's still the world, okay? Still the world. And there's too much travel now. How are you going to put travel bans? As regular viewers know and listeners know, for the first time in my life, I'm fascinated. No, I'm not fascinated. I'm fixated on everything Australian.
Dave, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. Ordinarily, obviously, you don't want the virus to be this deadly. I mean, it's frightening what's going on, but you see that what these unvaxxed people are doing. Wouldn't it be better, am I wrong to say, if this thing was much more deadly, if we could get a variant that was much more deadly and they would start going like flies, wouldn't they be forced at that point to say, oh, shit?
Okay. You have to look at what stands.
To get worse before it gets better type.
Right, we're going to speculate on it. Okay, so initially, it wasn't bad enough for them to get vaccinated, whoever didn't choose to vaccinate, correct?
Right.
I mean, it was
they
pretty
thought
bad.
that their immune systems would be fine.
I mean, 600,000 people in the first three surges, which were really related surges. We expected them, okay? The fourth surge, which we're in now, is not unexpected, but it's a variant. Now, I don't know enough about science, but I'd read very early on that variants happen. And why variants happen is the longer a disease is out there, the more chance it has to change, modify, morph. And indeed, we give them names, and I mean, I certainly object, to Trump's China virus, but here we have the India, the Indian virus, but that's the one that they're worried about now. And now we give them names. So it's Delta right now we're dealing with.
Right.
So yeah. Now, what we do know in the past month that Delta's been taking over. It's now I think it's almost up now in America. It's almost 90% of the cases.
That I don't know, but I assume that you're correct.
Now, somewhere around there, it's been climbing up, right? So it's now the dominant, by great numbers, virus. The good news is that so far, those of us that are vaccinated, the vaccine is holding. Moderna came out with some new data yesterday, I guess, and they're doing very well against it. It doesn't mean Pfizer or J are not.
But we probably will at some point during the next year need a booster, correct?
Oh, that was a given from the beginning, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to finish this. So your question, it is a question. If people now, the vaccination rate is climbing up again. So I think there's truth to what you said. As it hits home, to people, you're beginning to see now, again, people who know this can correct me. I think it's up to 3 active on-air crazy Trump pre-conspiracy people, all of which said it wasn't, have died from it. Now, you have to wonder, okay, I follow this guy. He said it wasn't real and now he's dead. Do I make a change? Trev is absolutely right. Trev, not that you're ever wrong, but I'm just saying that's the problem. So would it be better now that those who chose to unvaccinate die? Pretty harsh, right? But they're not dying.
Well, you did see there were some people, you started seeing in the news these people saying that they wish they had gotten and then all of a sudden the vaccination rate started going up in the South.
That's what I'm saying. So if it gets worse, does the vaccination rate go up? Well, yes. Now Gary's got a great point. And I don't know. We looked at herd immunity. I'm not real sure that was ever. I don't know. What is? Yeah, can we get there? I don't know with the numbers now, with the refusals. But my concern, obviously I'm concerned about America. I live here. I'm not as concerned because I'm vaccinated, but I'm still concerned. But what I'm more concerned about is the world. We are. It's not some bogus slogan. We are one world, right? So I was saying with Australia did a brilliant job initially, right? Of, keeping it out. They have such good, the other day, what day would it have been? I guess it would have been, what day this week? Wednesday. So here's a story for you. Wednesday, friends of ours called, and a band that we like, all 4 of us like, the Allman Betts Band, and Blackberry Smoke, which we like, were playing in Baltimore. And Jay said, I'll drive. I said, okay, we'll go. While we were on the phone, Brian, he went to get the tickets. He said, something's wrong, right? And so I said, well, I'll check. We thought it was a computer glitch. That day, within the hour of us doing it, not the timing is not, one of the guitar players for Blackberry Smoke tested COVID positive, and they canceled the show the day before. Interesting enough, while we're still talking to them, my son Michael calls from Australia. He says, well, it's happened. I said, what? He says, we're going into 7-day lockdown. Canberra, the capital of Australia, had not had a case in more than a year. And they got one. And they went into lockdown over one case. Okay, that's good, right? But from what my understanding is, Australia has a zero tolerance policy toward that. Well, a lockdown's a lockdown. You want to try to avoid it as long as you can. Now they're back, and Australians, and sort of Keith or anyone else of our listeners who's in Australia could comment better than I can. But my understanding is they're irate because they did everything right the first time, right? They now are back in as deep. The numbers they're not as great as our numbers, right? But Australia say, no, we're locked down. Michael was told that they're looking at 2023 before opening up Australia.
Right. That's not good for you, that's for sure.
Well, he's coming home. I mean, that's good. I mean, they're coming home December 20th. Now,
for good or for just
for good? They're coming back then. Yeah, he'll fly. He'll fly back and forth, but they're coming back to the States to have their base. So, the idea of it is this COVID. Now, because we don't know, and I think wise men, much wiser than I, and if you think about it, it's absolutely true, Brian. The only thing, what is it? Roosevelt said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, fear is really the fear of what you don't know will happen or what you think will happen, right? When it happens, it happens. I mean, that's when you get the courage, hopefully, to deal with it or whatever. And this virus is just uncertain. We don't know. It's been 100 years since there's been a world pandemic, right? 1919, 1918, right toward the end of World War I.
Right.
Science has improved. Health has improved. We're in better shape. And yet 600,000 Americans are dead. That's not an insignificant number. I mean, yes, we have, 300 and some million or whatever it is. But that's
it should have been a lot less than that, though.
And it could have been if two things had happened. One, if Trump had handled it correctly,
right,
or any president had handled it correctly. And I can't think of anyone who would have done a worse job than Donald Trump. But secondly, people have to realize that they have to do their part. And their part consists, if you can't vaccinate, at least mask, socially distance, and if you can't vaccinate, stay the hell home. Now, next week, I'm putting together something that I want to talk at length about schools and vaccinations, because schools are starting to open up and what all that means. But now, look at the numbers. COVID now is about COVID in young children, and by young children under the age of 12, is now approaching 20% of the COVID cases nationwide. And we're going to open schools, and we're going to risk kids. The other side of that coin is, I said all along, really, you can miss a year, and that's basically what they've missed. You get into that second year, I don't know. We don't know what the long-term effects will be of education. So let's look at what is troubling. You've got politics, which is really troubling right now, and you've got the pandemic. Some relationship between the two, right? But not complete. And then if you get over those, you've got evidence of severe climate change. Not a myth, not a made up thing, nothing, right? And they're all real. They're not imaginary. People think they are. Fine, you're wrong.
Might solve the Middle East problem. Everybody moving north.
Well, I was interested.
I'm laughing, but it's.
No. Well,
when I was in North Carolina about that, they'll all be moving north.
I'll make a comment today. As I said, all right. The news was filled today, and I disagree with the position. Comparisons of Vietnam and Afghanistan, right? There was a headline here in Washington. Will Afghanistan be Biden's Vietnam? Look, we never should have been in Vietnam, and we never should have been in Afghanistan. It's that simple, right. Okay? Think about it. If the French, which were a dominant army before we were, could not hold Vietnam, and they couldn't, and the Russians, and their supply line was right there, right? The Russian supply line, ours isn't, and they couldn't hold Afghanistan, the way as ruthless as they are,
right?
And we thought, what did we think we were going to do? And with the pullout, what did anybody imagine? That the Taliban was crushed? It wasn't. that the Taliban was going to home? They're not. You know who has to defend Afghanistan? I'm sorry, it's the Afghan army and people.
And they just, for whatever reason, they keep running away and whatever.
Well, look, I mean,
300,000 and they go right down the toilet. It's
Well,
like they
remember-
didn't want to. They didn't have to fight.
they didn't
anymore.
want to do it. They didn't want to look. It's in Vietnam.
They had a fucking air force. You know what I mean? They had 300,000 people, and it's like they're melting like chocolate.
And it shouldn't surprise anyone.
At least
Now-
the Vietnamese held out for a year or two. You know.
Well,
After
but
we
not really.
It's not
I mean,
like
yeah.
15 days like this. or
Well,
whatever it is.
well. Now, of course, we don't know how many people, because the United States so often fights its wars over economic interests, not over people. We don't know how many people were sympathetic to Taliban, how many people don't care. I mean, we just don't know, right? But we do know this. I think within a month, the Taliban will have control. Once they get control of Kabul, it is indeed
Kabul
a
is it.
ball game over. But I don't know.
Well, they control the American embassy, though. That's the.
I don't think there'll be an American embassy there. They're already pulling everybody. They've actually said they sent an order out from Washington, saying if you're an American in Afghanistan, get the hell out right now by any means necessary, by any means you can, because they can't guarantee. Say we sent 3,000 troops back in. You know what's going to happen to them?
I heard they're sending 5,000 back in.
Well, it could be. Initially it was 3. I mean, they could. You know
More
whatever
people going
number
in now than they were leaving. You know.
Well, that's. I mean, but for what? I mean.
Well, you know, again, at least Biden himself said, you know, that there was nothing saying that it was going to ultimately lead this way. That, you know, the question was the Afghan army and air force going to fight? You know, they had a tactical advantage.
Well, let's put it like this: they're not putting up much of a fight, or they're really hellaciously bad army. There are people, Brian, and I don't know. I think I'm starting to get to a point where I agree with this. You know, we try to impose our democracy as something great. It's not as good as it's cracked up to be. Okay? And you can't just take a region like the Middle East that really doesn't have a concept of democracy, right? I mean, they really don't. It's not in their DNA. No. And lead them, especially if the whole country doesn't want it. And we never could be.
Yeah, but they also don't want, I mean, if you're a female in that country, you don't want what's coming.
I don't
want what's coming.
I obviously I don't disagree with that. My question is it worth losing American lives every day to defend or work in a country that refuses to fight for itself? And I think Rudel has another.
Dostoevsky brought that up, Dave, and Brothers Karamazov. And if you have if one child has to suffer, is it worth it for the rest of the world that they're okay? That's a whole thought experiment. And
I understand
and that question I'm not going to answer for you because I don't know.
And I'm not. I'm just posing the question. I don't have an answer for it either, Brian. I mean, at what point, John Kerry, when he spoke in 1971. As the spokesperson for the Vietnam veterans opposed to the war, told Congress, this is a mistake, and who wants to be the last man to die for a mistake? Bruce Springsteen takes that and makes a song out of it, but that's a very good question. Now, who determines whether it's a mistake or not?
Well, I just want to. I still want to. The question is, if you have a standing army of 300,000 men, they've been trained, you have an air force, and you know, what happened? You know, and if it, you know, we still haven't really learned that because if they weren't going to be willing to fight for their own women, you know, because if you knew that they're going to be raped, that's what's going to happen.
Let me ask you a question. You know, how do we know they don't want that to happen?
That's what that's what
I know.
wondering about.
I realize that's what you're asking. I mean,
is it that fucking sick? Is that the the way they want to go? Like,
okay.
Yeah, this is going to be cool for big rape.
Again, I'm speaking somewhat in ignorance. I know a little bit about Islam, not enough to be an expert or even to really be knowledgeable. But I do notice here. Okay, we have almost every Arabian country is represented in our building. This building is a true international building. And I do watch, the women wear the burqas, many of them. They raise the children. The men are just completely dominant. And in that type of culture, how do you change that?
Yeah, I just...
How do you change? You have to, there's so many fundamental changes that you have to make or have to be made or somebody wants to make them. And if they don't want to
in
make
places
them...
like Lebanon, it's fine, It's just... They've been able to make that transition. But unfortunately, I know what you're saying is the majority are not doing that. And the women are essentially wearing a tent over that.
Right.
How do you let that happen? But that's
it's not that you don't let it happen. It's how do you stop it from happening? It is happening. It's embedded in the culture.
And I'm not trying to stigmatize a group of people, but we're basically looking at the 7th century right there.
And yet the irony of it is, Brian, if you look at the whole scheme of the world, do you know it was in the Arab areas that saved knowledge for us?
Right.
Because Western Europe were the barbarians.
Well, but there were still, so the great scientists. It was Newton that still believed in alchemy and Leibniz, all kind of strange shit. It
was all there. I think again, and this is a problem way above my pay grade, and this is why the president.
Let's put it this way, Dave. The things that they solved. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I have to say.
Oh no.
That's commendable, but they were not done with theology. You know what I mean? What made them have those achievements was not theology. It was science. But parallel to that science, they had this. Oh, but the crazy shit. You know what I mean?
Well, in their world,
and that has lived on.
And what people, I think we all, and I put myself, I'm not above this. We all look at what is different from us and begin to say, some say it's wrong, some people say it's crazy, but you do understand, we all have to understand that they think we're the infidels and crazy, right?
That's going to happen. That's like, they think the Cowboys are better and we think the Eagles are better. It doesn't mean anything.
What I'm saying about that, how do we go into a country when they already think we're the infidels, or a large number of them do, right? And
that's where I get back to 5 easy pieces.
Right.
Just like our own political system, there is no way back.
And what happens, from my understanding, and again, there are far more experts even in our audience to do this, but my understanding is after World War II, the country that was becoming the most westernized was Iran. Now it was also the most corrupt, which follows it. And so what happens is, it's like when Cuba went communist. America gave it a lot of help to go communist, right? In the sense that the corruption there was so great.
My grandfather lived there for 6 months in the 50s under Batista, and it was the worst 6 months of his life.
No, it was. So, again, we set ourselves up a lot of times as being the world's policeman, as being the moral judge. Now, this week I've been working on, and I want to pose this to people, and I'm asking our audience to react to this. I presented today as this was part of my presentation today, when I also did 2 talks in addition, not one yesterday, one today, in addition to the tours. And I said, here's the problem. I'm speaking of critical race theory, or all this stuff that's going on, which I'll talk more about next week. But if in religion, if we're religion, many religions speak about the concept of original sin. But the problem of using it that way is that if you're not religious, you kind of turn off to it, right? You just do. I like being a reader and a writer and a teacher of literature and a student, a literature major. I look at fiction is often the way that we disguise the facts and truth. Fiction has truth in it, and 2 of America's greatest writers, one in New England in the 1860s, Nathaniel Hawthorne, who had Puritan American culture down, and William Faulkner in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and had Southern culture down. They didn't speak of religion. They talked about the sins of the fathers are visited on the children, which is really the same concept, right? So before America runs around, we have to accept 3 facts. If you want original sin, it's fine. If you want sins of the fathers, and we're going to pay for this forever. The first sin, and they're in no particular order, is patriarchy. All right? America was founded. Now, people say they weren't racist. Well, we haven't even got to that part yet. But indeed, what did it mean to be a man when they said all men are created equal? Their definition of a man, at the forefathers, everybody said it, was someone who held land. That's all they wanted. It was an elitist government set up from the get-go.
Sounds very feudal to me, like
based
Russian
on economics. Based on, it is. So now they could say if they wanted to, racism wasn't a term then, but if you prohibited women, black men and women, Native Americans, pretty much anybody who's not white, from holding land, and you only acknowledge those, having land as being government, being fit to be the government, not a good system. Mm-hmm. Certainly, and with patriarchy, of course, sexism is built in.
We have a quick comment here, David. We have a new member, Upset 999.
Oh, hey,
great to see
welcome.
you. So, it says, I see the Taliban as an Afghan equivalent to the Christian right. They're similar. We should send our evangelical Trump supporters to Afghanistan. It would be kind of nice, because they might be able to destroy each other.
I would go along with that as long as we don't give guns to them. Let them use God. The Trump supporters believe in God. Now, just to finish that thought the first, I see patriarchy as our first sins of the fathers, and that involves women, the whole thing. Our second sin is the country was built on slavery. And Brian, it is scary. I'm looking, a new book just came out, and I'm reading it. And basically, it's how the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the formation of America was shaped by the concept of slavery. And it was. Indeed, with the South having slaves, and you don't think the North would have had them. The difference was the North didn't have the big farms. So the North became the merchants. It could have been slavery could have been all over the country if the weather conditions were such that all of America was the South.
Well, I think there were still some things. I remember.
Like what? Why?
1861, when serfdom was eliminated in Russia. And I remember reading something about Lincoln saying that even then Russia had a very bad image around the world, right, because things were changing. England moved away from slavery. Serfs, for those who aren't really familiar with it, it was a little bit different than slavery because it had to deal with where you were attached to the land where you were. So
right.
The landowner
and the owner,
right,
and the owner of the
had
land
control of it, but it was still slavery. Okay,
in essence, yes.
And Lincoln, I'm going to kind of cut it short what he said, but he basically said, how can we continue doing this when a country so despotic as Tsarist Russia has ended serfdom? So it was looking bad. Lincoln saw the international aspect of it.
Well, he did. The only thing about Lincoln, before we make him a god,
yeah, you got to be careful how I go with that, okay? But yeah.
No, I'm just saying before we make him a god. No, but I'm just saying before we make Lincoln a god above all others, I think we have to look at two positions Lincoln held. One was that he believed that African Americans could never exist in American society. He supported the Back to Africa movement, with Liberia becoming free Africa. So let's not, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying we can't make him into this almighty God. So why did he free the slaves?
I'm just saying he understood international politics, and Russia was considered a bad boy back then.
I understand that. But again, even when he's talking about that, and again, yes, he did free the slaves, but let's remember, to me, the more striking quote was this: if I could free all of the slaves and preserve the Union, indeed, that is what I would do. If I could free half the slaves and still preserve the Union, indeed, that is what I would do. And if I could free none of the slaves and preserve the Union, that is what I wanted to do. So my concern is people make him out to be this crusader. And he was a crusader for saving the Union. And those of us who believe that was a good move should be very grateful to him. Okay.
But don't you think he still knew better that slavery was wrong at a very base level? He knew that it was wrong.
Yes, but by that time there was a lot of evidence. Do you think George Washington knew it was wrong? Do you think Thomas Jefferson knew it was wrong? Do you think since 7 of the first 9 presidents of the United States held slaves?
I think they knew it was wrong, but I think you have this. It's like the Trumpers with convincing themselves that
I agree.
climate change is wrong. They think that somehow African Americans or Africans in general were not full human beings. It was just that's how stupid.
That's
they
the
were.
time. But here's my problem. That is indeed true, and we have to judge people in their own time. But a modern revisionist will say, "Oh, George Washington was against slavery. Then why did he not free his slaves at least upon his death?"
Right.
He didn't.
He didn't.
Jefferson fathered children, and that's a whole nother area.
And not like that, he takes the very attractive one too.
Well,
It's like,
and now there is, I don't know, again, we don't want to get too deep into this, but I find this interesting when you start dealing with Jefferson, Jefferson was brilliant. I mean, there's no question about that for his time. But he made a promise when his wife died that he would never remarry and get involved again. And I think with Sally Hemings, that was part of his thinking, but it doesn't, it doesn't just, and so the third sin that I see America is the genocide of the indigenous people.
Right.
Now, I really have a problem with a country who's established its rules that way, somehow becoming morally the moral arbiter in the world.
Right.
I
and
mean,
that's
I really
what Putin,
do.
By the way, Putin's using that argument.
Well, I mean, it is,
and it is an argument. It's just that he's
it. The worst thing to be is a hypocrite in terms of if you're trying to make an argument that it's my way. The problem one of the greatest problems today with conservatives is do as I do, not as I say. So a couple of things I want to bring in, which are ties into
don't forget, they're the ones, the Trumps and the Rand Pauls are getting their vaccinations and the Regenerons.
All that. But now, who had bad weeks this week? Because look, I don't like to wish
Rand Paul had a bad week. I know that.
Well, Rand Paul had a horrible week. But I think two people, the one that should be the most
Cuomo.
Cuomo, we can talk about that. But I think right now, talking about the Republicans, number one scared, I think, should be your favorite evangelical lookalike and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Did you see where his Gumba released
I didn't see anything. I was concentrating on the Mike Pillow stuff.
Well, I'm going to get into Mike too in a minute.
Okay, but tell us, because I really don't.
What happened with Matt is basically Greenberg is turning over thousands and thousands and thousands of documents and emails and pictures. And
well, he's got the pictures. That's perfect.
Some of them have been linked, and basically,
Pictures
I'm paraphrasing
1,000 words.
here. I don't have it in front of me, but basically, it says, and of course, good reporters can get that. It basically says it's him, and he's contacting this woman. And he says, well, for a good time, what does it usually cost?
400. Is that the one he said $400?
$400. And he said, well, I have a friend, and let me send you my friend's picture. And that was Mr. Gaetz. And so her friend said, he's cute. Now, what else is that linked to? So Matt, I wouldn't be doing any long-term investments unless they can be monitored.
Especially if he's got the pictures. That's going to crucify him.
Well,
then he's going to try to kill the guy,
Now, you speak of pictures, and we do know for a fact, verified, that he would take pictures of scantily clad or beautiful women and tell his fellow congressmen, this is who I was with. This is who I was with. So now I'm not saying they were sexual pictures. I mean, they were just, there. Mike had the worst week. Poor Mr. Pillow guy. First of all,
and he walked off the stage.
Well, I went into Washington, D.C. I had to go on business. But, of course, I was really hoping that Donald Trump would miraculously come down from the mountain on August 13th, which was Friday. And, of course, he didn't, which we knew was bullshit from the get-go. But Mike decided, he's holding this, 3-day, 72-hour cyber seminar where he was going to unveil the truth. In the middle, was it day one? Yeah, it was day one. he gets the news that the judge is allowing the case against him, right, for slander, libel from the voting machine company to proceed. He left the stage and was heard for no more. Okay? So, yeah, Mike just got pummeled everywhere. They bring
and he was sweating it out in an interview when this guy was just from CNN was challenging. I mean, you could see. Do you remember? I think it was like Saturday Night Live used to do. Martin Short used to play this guy. He used to get really nervous with he'd have like the cigarette and he'd be sweating. Who you saying about me? That kind of thing. And that was how the image that I got. But it was
Brian,
real.
The hardest thing to do is get inside a person's head if you're not that person, and it's not that easy to get inside your own head. I've always said motivation is the hardest thing to determine. You can see what they do, right? You can see what a person does or doesn't do, but you don't know why they don't. So what's your take on Mike? I mean, look, obviously
in for an inch, in for a mile, and whatever it is, he's just in for a penny, in for a pound, whatever you call it. That he's trying to get Fox involved now, and Fox is, staying far away from him because they all know they're going to lose this thing here because now he's just building up more and more evidence against himself, just like Giuliani, and now he's really debasing himself by saying, I'll give you, I'll do I'll do a little video cameo clip for you for $200. That's how bad it's gotten for them because they're in legal jeopardy now. And Pillow knows he's in. I'm just gonna say Pillow because I keep forgetting his name, but Pillow knows he's in trouble.
Yeah, Pillow guy, Mr. Pillow.
And I'm sure he's not. The sales for his pillows have gone way down. You can't just depend on Trump supporters to.
Well, no. Trump's business has gone way down.
Yeah, that's good too. That's the thing I'm kind of thinking. It's sooner or later it's gonna bust. It's gonna cave in.
Well, look, let's be realistic. Trump caters to the wealthy, correct? His businesses, they cater to the wealthy. His hotels.
He's not.
Do you know how much
for them? He's for himself.
No. But listen to what I'm saying. Do you know how much it is to get a room at Trump International Hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue? The cheapest room that I know of is $650 a night.
Well, who's spending? I mean, unless you're.
Well, that was the idea before people were to be there. They're not now. Well, he developed because he has this need to be loved, which is just pathetic and sick and sad.
You're about Trump now.
Trump. That love comes from people who can't afford his hotels. So now he's enmeshed with the people who love him.
He likes the attention too. So even people
exactly, but not
even if it's negative, he still wants.
The problem becomes he doesn't understand that negative attention can hit him in the pocketbook, which is really where he wants to be. He doesn't understand that. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm going to end with the saddest story of the week that I found, and they're related. So just let me arrange some things here. Okay, so I decide, usually each week I pick something and try to focus on it, not for the show, but for myself. So this week, like everyone else, I'm wondering, why aren't people getting the vaccine? And there are a number of reasons, but one of them is the reports in social media that are going around. So, in the pandemic, our big thing, Judy, my big thing was we went to the grocery store. We developed quite a relationship with the cashier who checks us out every week. Her name is Africa. We know I know more about her family than some of the neighbors I've had in this time, and she knows more about us. And this week she said, what's this about? I heard the vaccine turns you into a monkey. And I said, I don't think so. You're vaccinated. And she said, no, I heard this. So I went back and researched it. And indeed, that is making the rounds. Now, here's how these things start, Rod. It started with AstraZeneca. Okay, and it's your favorite country that isn't America is involved. It was Russia. And they wanted Europe to take their vaccine, right?
Sputnik 5.
And AstraZeneca, which was the Oxford, right, coming out of England, that seemed to be the preferred. So they wanted to take it down. So they started a report that it contained all kinds of monkey germs and monkey virus in.
Well, the Sputnik 5 does have a live virus in there.
It does, but it's not a monkey
No,
virus.
no, of course not.
Now, what happens is, so there's always a little grain of truth, just a small grain that just gets magnified, blown up, and taken out of proportion. So now people are saying, I read, and it must be true, that you take a vaccine and turn to the monkey. Now, I would turn to anyone who said that and said, show me a monkey that was a human who got the vaccine. There aren't any. But that doesn't stop the story. And what's nice is, you know what they would tell you? They've all been disappeared. No. Because you can't prove what isn't true. And you can't disprove what isn't true if they don't believe the facts. The more disturbing story, so that's just obscene, but it's going around. The more disturbing story, and wow. Are you familiar with the name, and I'm asking it, Richard Matheson at all? Does that mean anything to you?
No.
Shouldn't.
No,
it shouldn't. But Richard Matheson was one of the main writers of The Twilight Zone, the original Rod Serling. And he's a master storyteller. And he wrote a story called I Am Legend, right? And I Am Legend has been made into 3 movies in 3 different decades and has been extremely popular in all 3 and has attracted a big name actor. In the 50s, it appeared as I Am Legend, and Vincent Price starred in it, okay? In the 60s, it appeared with Charlton Heston in it, when Charlton Heston had a great run of, Planet of the Apes and Soylent Green. Well, Ben-Hur, Planet of the Apes, Soylent Green, and then The Omega Man.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2007, at the height of his popularity, Will Smith, and they renamed it again, I Am Legend. And basically what happens, and it's amazing, Brian, just a quick aside, it's amazing in the pandemic to go back and see how much science fiction, how many stories have dealt with this, type of thing before. Of course, we're seeing them now, but I'm talking before. And in this pandemic, the military is working on something, and it turns into this, turns it around, and people who take it do turn into a form of zombie, right? Well, that's not going to happen, of course. Well, guess what? If you go on a number of the crazy websites right now, they are making that claim. Now, it's from a damn movie, okay? So I love this tweet came out this week by Akiva Goldsman. Now, Akiva was a co-writer on the Will Smith version of I Am Legend. And this kind of sums up. He said, oh my God, it's a movie. I made that up. It's not real. And yet people, I think, are looking for or believing, instead of just believing this disease is real, it can kill me, but if I get a vaccine, I'm okay. They're working on reasons not to. So I would ask them the same question I would ask about the monkey men. Where's the zombies? Where are they? How many, millions of Americans vaccinated? Where are the zombies? They're not. The problem becomes that people would rather believe this movie, and they just get the story out. And what we see about these stories, Brian, they come around again and again and again and again and again, right? Because they surface, kind of die down, resurface, and come back. So it certainly doesn't help with the conservative population, such as your favorite self-licensed eye doctor, Rand Paul, saying, now, here's the problem.
That's why you hope that guy that lived next to him, God damn it, he must have been right,
He was right.
Yeah.
He was right. No, but the thing is, again, the word doctor, okay? Oh, I got to believe he's a doctor. First of all, he's an eye doctor. Secondly, he's licensed. He didn't license. He gave himself the title. It's not even. It even went through board certification.
Right.
Oh my God! It's like me calling myself tomorrow president. I'm not president. But now I want to get to the tragic, the most tragic story I saw this week.
All right.
And I don't know if you saw it. And this is what happens when you fall victim to QAnon, or what can happen.
I know where you're going to go.
Did you read about the founder of the surfing school who took his own 2 kids to Mexico and killed them?
Okay. Yeah.
So basic story. We can name names. Anyway, his name was Matthew Taylor Coleman. He was 40. He took his 2-year-old son and his 10-month-old daughter to Mexico and over the border and killed them with a spearfishing gun. And why did he do that? He was convinced he was a QAnon member, and he was following one of their threads, which is serpent DNA is being implanted in children, and they will turn out to be devil children. Now, why the serpent? Of course, we're looking at is the serpent has long been a symbol of the devil. And I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And people say, "Oh no, he's just he did this." Okay, and he did it fully aware of what he was doing. He'll try an insanity defense, I'm sure. And was he insane? You could make that case. But if there is such a thing as a sane insanity, he was sanely insane, if that makes any sense, right? And this is where we go when you get into that dark place that Trump wanted to lead the nation. It's one thing to lie. All of us lie. I shouldn't. I mean, my mom didn't. She's the only person I know. And she did lie, but she told those white lies. I'm just saying. But most all of us lie from time to time. But we don't have millions of people following us. And this brings us full circle
We barely
back.
had tens of people following us.
Well, I don't mean us. I mean anybody,
Right.
right? Of our elk. But now let's bring it back full. It's funny how these things all come back around circle without planning or without thinking about it, because it's kind of where we are in life right now. Let's bring it back to what do we do? When you have someone, right, who is willing to take the life of their 2-year-old and their 10-month-old,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on the other side, how are you going to unite? That's the first question with them. And the second is, why should you unite with them? Okay. Now, we have Upset 99, and she must have been talking to my son, because when we talk, serious cognitive dissonance comes up all the time. And it's a long-standing term. It's relatively new now. Well, yes, it explains a lot of things, but what it doesn't explain is it's not like some temporary thing. Do you know who comes back from cognitive dissonance? You have to choose to come back. Reality's not going to bring you back. Your friends are not going to bring you back. It's not like, I mean, you can have an intervention like you do for an unrepentant alcoholic or drug addict, but I don't see anything that forces them back. Yes,
Good therapy, Mike.
Anthony. But Anthony, I'm going to say something to you, and I'm not a violent
And
person,
Anthony's
so-
really in Texas. Anthony kind of knows what's going on in Texas.
Oh no, I'm not.
He's, you know.
I'm not arguing any of that.
Mm.
I'm just saying. Oh, wow, this is getting okay. I'm speaking before I'm thinking, so I'm going to speak anyway. You can be killed, right, by anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one thing not to fight back, and another thing to fight back. Now, I'm not saying if you fight back, you're going to be successful. But here's the thing that kind of leads me to the question. We've got to figure out ways to stop them, to fight back, that fits our moral framework. And when I say each of ours individual, I do not believe that one kills unless confronted directly with a choice of life or death. I have no problem then. If somebody came in tonight and I thought they would kill me or my wife, I would take their life, and I might regret it later, but at the moment I would be fine. And I don't think I would regret it that much later, other than taking a life.
Well, if I'm in trouble, Dave, you're the guy I'm going to have save me, okay?
Well, the problem is I'm not very good with a gun. I haven't shot for a number
No,
of
as long
years.
as you can jump in front of some.
Well, no, I'm not saying to say. No, I don't mean that kind of stuff. I'm talking. I want to survive it. I want to take out the
Okay.
bad guy. I don't want to save
I
your
think you
ass.
could. I think you got this. The
I'm not.
strength.
I'm
Good.
not. No. I'm not. I see. I told you. I mean, I think I told the story. I think it was even last week we were talking about it. You know, our friend whose their son had a gun, pulled it on people, and was still shot dead. I mean, the good guy was with a gun.
Why couldn't Kyle Rittenhouse die when he started pulling the gun? You know,
Well, Brian, that's the age-old question. You know, why do good people suffer? Why do innocent people suffer? When I get an answer,
should suffer. I mean, he should.
When
suffer
I
life.
Trust me, as much as I like you, you're one of my best friends, or maybe, God forbid, you're my best friend on the planet. Oh my God, I gotta get a new set of friends.
You know, your best friend is the one you call the most. It's just like the CD. You may think you have a favorite song, but until you look at the
playlist and see
on it and you play it, and say, oh shit. You know,
so what you're telling me?
It's not unusual. It was my favorite song. I didn't know I liked Tom Jones.
So Stormy Daniels really is my favorite person.
Yes.
I mean, I have tons of messages, and they cost money now. Okay. Until we have to figure out how we're going to stop them, Brian.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that.
There's no answer.
Now, what I do feel good about, I like to try to end, not gild the lily. It's time. Every week, I was never certain of the outcome. I become less certain of the outcome. And what I mean by that, I'm not sure who wins this. I'm really not. And I don't think any of us can be or should be. And, you know, wherever it's bad, you can look and say it's good. You know, now, Ron DeSantis has made a decision. And Governor Abbott, in Texas, and you're the one you have sexual fantasies over, the governor of North Dakota, right? I forget her name.
Kristi Noem?
Yeah, Noem.
She is actually very attractive, to be honest.
Well, see, I got you to admit that. You have
but
sexual
that's all
fantasies.
as far as I'm going to get. But that has nothing to do with liking somebody.
Now, they're all three, they're all vying. And Noem has the easiest job because there's only 2 Democrats in the whole state of North Dakota. To do one of 2 things. All the smart money says that if Trump, and again, it's a huge if, but let's assume that basically the impossible happens. He is the front runner now, and he would be the front runner with nobody touching him, were he to be able to run for president in 2024.
But it doesn't matter. Whoever wins, whether it's DeSantis or Trump, you're going to get a Trump.
That's my point.
Trump would be the worst, though, because
that's my point.
He's the worst.
But so DeSantis, they'd be willing to take the vice presidency, so they're battling for that. But really, what they're hoping for is to be the Trumpian successor, because even they know. Look, they know full well that if Trump walks this tightrope, man, I'm not going to give him any accolades, because he's he's the worst human being I think on the planet right now.
Right now, he is.
I don't think there's anybody close. Even, you're the guy you have the poster of up on your wall, Putin. I think in a certain way he's past Putin because he's Putin.
A Russian would disagree with you, but I get it. Yes, I agree with you.
I mean, the difference is Russia. Yes, you're right. But Russia, historically has not been very. America,
because they will say, as my friends do, they say, there is not one thing that comes out of that mouth is the truth. He will just open his mouth and lie.
But I'm just saying, right now, unfortunately, I am going to play a little Homer, meaning,
we're comparing stars here.
Not the poet, but the idea that, even though I believe that, we're all in one world, and America is a little bit more important to me right now. It's where I live, where my son and daughter-in-law live when they get back, and where my grandchildren plan to live, although they'd prefer to live in Australia. Anyway, this idea of, as we watch, but DeSantis is taking a big risk, Abbott is taking a big risk, Noem not so much. DeSantis, his voters are dying. Okay? Abbott, his voters are dying. This wave is not hitting urban America. It's not really hitting suburban America, right?
Well, then how do they walk that tightrope? Because they want to keep their supporters alive. At the same time, they want to support their stupidity.
That's what's crazy. That's what doesn't make sense to me. That's what doesn't make sense to me. Last thing I will say,
McConnell is, he's
look, I'm the last person to defend McConnell. but he said he's supported masks since the beginning. That doesn't undo.
Well, he's the guy who had
any-
polio, so he understands.
Well, he also understands politics. He understands more
He
than
doesn't want
Trump.
to lose 1,000 votes in a state that could come
Why-
down to 2,000
how would you?
votes.
And you know who's worrying now? He and your favorite eye doctor, Rand Paul, because
fuck.
McConnell privately is saying to him, according to people in Washington D.C., "Shut the fuck up." Just what we're saying. You know,
Right.
we have to return to power. You know, we lost it, right? So again, the end is not presumed. Let's assume for a moment that Florida and Texas go Democrat. And they could for a lot of number of
Fair
reasons.
vote, yes.
Well, yeah, you're right, but you can't. They're not. I mean, they're really a toss-up. They do ball games over. We're safe.
And I just believe, knowing the Republicans, they're going to make sure, hell or high water, however they're going to get those votes or stop those votes, they're going to win. They're going to make sure that the fix will be in before the event.
You're right. However,
So it's the whole thing's got to be decided before the vote, in my opinion.
well, here's the one thing about it not being so good. Let's assume, which in Texas, I think the largest distance for a polling place, I think I read somewhere, was 82 miles. Your polling place was 82 miles away. Okay. Pretty impossible. You know, you'd have to find these places and funnel money and drivers and, just put the effort there.
And the Republicans know we're going to do that.
Well, they keep me. Now, there's a very simple fix. Pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, and then we have people like Manchin and Boebert, and where do you go with it?
And there you are. Now, again, a concern I have this week, another concern.
I'm telling you, Manchin's afraid of his own people, just like Fox.
No, I got that. And President Biden makes a point. But please don't let one vote in your mind, Joe, don't let it think that the old ways are back. They're not. This was just a vote that got through. It is important, but it's the least important vote to get through. The most important is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. If that goes through, that assures that we have democracy. Then we work on the other
Good luck.
areas. Yeah, I don't have an answer. Now, this is why it'll be very interesting to see the support on August 28th, because it's being billed as, it'll be a number of groups and coalitions. Talking today to, like I said, the group that's across the nation, they're all sending people, pretty much. Will it be, what effect does that have? Does it sway Manchin? Does it sway? No, I think you need to use the power that the Democratic Party has. I'll give you one sample. I don't know if this would work. This is something I would try. That's also interesting. Will it be recognized? Will it be allowed? I don't know. But let's get back to this idea of, if we don't figure out a way to get the vote, not for us. I don't care who votes. Everyone is eligible. Democracy will be doomed. Now, your favorite, your favorite Supreme Court judge that you have sexual fantasies over is Miss Coney Barrett there, right? Amy. I think you refer to her as Amy. Now, I'm not going to make her a god, but she did something good this week.
And
You see what
did,
you see what?
barely, but yes.
Well, no, I mean, so again, but here's what we do know. We do know that Trump is the power behind the Republican Party right now. And we do know, as you pointed out so astutely,
I disagree. I think that the Trumpers are the real problem now.
No, I'm saying the power behind the party.
Well,
In other
yeah,
words,
I'm just
it's
saying,
Trump's
though,
party.
I would still be much... I think it's going to be a vicarious situation. I mean, when I told you, when I was going down to North Carolina last week, things that I
Absolutely.
saw in my area...
No, okay, I guess maybe I'm not making my point clear, Brian. I'm saying there would be no Trumpers if there weren't Trump. Trump was the catalyst that brought them all together, these disparate
He
groups.
certainly, yes, he expedited what was
Right.
what happened.
It's the same way. A way to look at it, or a way that I look at it is, okay, working from home was a coming trend. The pandemic put it on steroids.
Yes. Yes.
The craziness of America was a coming trend. Trump put it on steroids.
Yes.
Now, but you're right, Brian. It's gone beyond him now. It's a movement. Okay, it's a movement.
It's a frightening. All you have to look is January 6th. Just
and
fight like hell.
Somebody posted a date. I think it's September. Whoever posted it, please put it back.
I think they said
up.
September 18th. That goes way back.
It was 18th or the 16th. I can't remember.
Maybe it was the 16th. I don't hold.
No,
I
don't know,
looking
Brian.
back.
I know it's coming up. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't mean anything, but it'll be too interesting within a 2-week period, right? Or basically maybe a 3-week period, where we'll have the two sides coming down, and we'll see, what happens. Now, there was an increased police presence, an increased military presence and awareness on the 13th. Messages went out to just be aware. So I guess my last comment tonight is doom and gloom right now. If you have it, it's kind of the order of the day. Okay. To not have it, I think you're not being realistic. In other words, you say everything's going to be rosy. But if what you have to do, and that's each of our responsibilities, is do what we can to change that doom and gloom picture, whatever little thing it is. Because if we don't, they say, they being the old saying, you get the government you deserve. And sometimes that's not true. But I know if you don't do anything, if you don't vote, if you don't contribute money, if you don't work for the poor, if you don't do something, and they are they. It is us and they. There's no we're in this together, kumbaya singing. And they get control of the country. Many, add as many as you want to infinity. People are going to suffer, and people are going to die. And don't think for a moment that if you can put people seeking freedom into camps, which Trump did, don't think he can put, not Trump, but don't think that kind of power can't exist here. Brian, you speak of Russia very eloquently. You speak of it well. You know it well. I think there are a number of Americans who think that's Russia, and they use the title of Sinclair Lewis's book, which was a satire and proved it could happen. It can't happen here. And I guess my message tonight is we have to be vigilant, not vigilant. I made that word up. I told you
that too.
No, we have to be both. But the idea of it is we have to be aware. We have to make ourselves aware. We have to make others aware. And we have to use all the talents that we have because it's simply a
One thing that we have going for us is that we're smarter than they are. But you have to be able to use it and figure it out.
Yeah. The thing we have going against us is so many of us have a conscience. And they don't.
They don't. So.
Okay. Let's see what upset. Let's see. Is there any comments? I know we're out of time, but
I've gone through all of them. I've been on Friend and Block.
I think upset 99.99. I think
Dave could tell you that story.
Yeah. Certainly. Now I don't know how to say this, and but I'm going to say this. I don't know why I'm quoting Grateful Dead lyrics tonight. They're not even my favorite band, but I am. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. Well, the reverse is also true. A friend of the devil shouldn't be a friend of mine. And that's how I look at these people. Not that there's a real devil or anything, but I'm saying these people are, I'm sorry, I don't care if they're misinformed, misguided, have missing synapses. They are working with and representing evil. So as long as I have no relatives on my family side, I'm like Brian now, that speak to me, talk to me, acknowledge I'm on the planet. I think the one, one actually told me, and he was trying to hurt me. I just laughed because my family is traditionally Republican. My mother was Republican, but not in the way she was a what would you say? She was an Eisenhower Republican or a Rockefeller Republican or a that kind of Republican. But anyway, he said, if your mother were alive, she'd be turning over in her grave. And I said, yeah, about you, not me, because you're a Trumper. So, yeah, again, thank you, Brian. Brian was very good. I just want to tell people how well he can adjust. I made a promise, and I try to fulfill my promises. I was unable because I really thought I could get home before I went to the concert and tape a couple things and show them, and I wasn't able to do it. And Brian, I sent a message. He didn't holler. He didn't scream. He threw 2 plates at Ronnie. She smacked him in the jaw. He got and did the job, and I promised I would be here, and I was. So again, thank you for putting me on the show. And I will. I got to say that I'm trying to think how to say this, not how to word it, but there's something wrong with me now, and I worry about it. The whole time, I was enjoying the hell out of the Ann Wilson thing, but I'm thinking about, as much as I like being here, I equally like doing the show. There's something wrong when you start thinking like that. There really is. I'm sorry. But this is fun. It's nice. Yeah, Anthony, you're not. And you want to know something else? Anybody who's not, I don't call it paranoid to be worried today. I call it facing reality.
And Anthony, I live in a red
portion
county
of a blue zone.
Yeah, and I get it, because all I have to go is 15 minutes away, right near the bay, and what I see is worse than anything I saw in North Carolina, in the hills of North Carolina this past week. Worse. And huge 20-foot flag to say,
and it would be nice.
Who would buy a fucking flag like that?
Well, Brian, and it would be nice to say it's just here or it's just there. There are pockets of Trumptopia. Is that such a word? Trumptopia everywhere in America. It's not just the South. And it was interesting to talking. We got, it was refreshing to be able to talk race with black people, not, and actually get feelings that, I always point out when I'm doing that, look, I'm not black. So, I can only speak as a white person. And, but they agreed with it. I think in some ways, the North, the Midwest are more nefarious, because in the South, the black-white racism has been forever, right? And it's accepted. Yeah, he doesn't reflect Jesus or Jesus in any way. Upset 999. And one of the things that laughed on the tour today, and they laughed, it was funny. We went by a black, we actually toured in a van and then we did some walking, but we went by the White House, which Joe Biden is opening up. You're getting closer, you're still not close. Before you couldn't even get, at one point, you couldn't even get within 3 streets of the White House when Trump was in there. But remember, the infamous day when he came out and did his photo op at the church, and that's where Black Lives good. Veg, have a great week. But the thing was, it was interesting. I said, how? And I keep saying I'll leave, but I will leave it. How?
I am going to have to cut you off after this. I got a short movie for everybody, and then we got to go.
Well, I don't want to see your movie. That's why I'm trying to delay it as long as I can. Now, how can anybody in their right mind, how can anyone, Brian, in their right mind, say they're a Christian and support a man who does a photo op with the Bible upside down? He didn't even know the Bible was upside down. So when Upset 999 said he doesn't in any way reflect Jesus, that is an example of understatement. Right. And with that, Mr. Weinstein, I'm not going to watch your movie because I definitely. What's tonight's feature?
Actually, again, it has my uncle, who was actually a war hero, Silver Star, bronze medal. Again, this is a different one. Went to visit them, my cousins. It's just me and my cousins, and my uncle. He went behind the lines, Battle of the Bulge, and they were cutting down American soldiers left and right. You can even check it out on YouTube. But he went behind the lines, and he and group of individuals took him out, and he got rewarded for it. So he's in this video. Harold Levitt was his name. Great hero. So we took a visit to Detroit, where he lived in 71. So I'm 11 years old here. and you'll see my cousins and myself. And one of my cousins was a vet anyway, too. But anyway,
Brian,
that's not the point.
we talked about a number of your fantasies tonight, including Judge Amy and Lauren and Marsha Taylor Greene. Did you have a fantasy person at age 11, or were you too young for that yet?
At 11, not.
I know.
I would think.
I know.
I had
who it was.
an idea about looks. I would say.
I know who it was. Pick Sam.
Oh no.
Don't go there.
I'm not going to.
We'll do another.
That one I can't. That is specific. I can't. That's one of the ones. Yeah. Not a word. Okay. But that was a good one, Dave. That was a good one. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Little inside joke. It's not even a joke between me and Dave on that one. So we'll just leave it at that. Thanks, Dave.
A good week, everybody. I hope for you.
Yeah. All right. Very short movie tonight. If I can find it.
What's the rating, Brian?
There isn't. I think my cousin's got his shirt off, so it's got to be PG or R.
PG. No, not R. PG. Okay.
All right. Let me see if I can figure this out. There we go, and it's gonna start soon.